Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Meaningful Communication Show. I'm Chad Eves, along with co-host Michael Gansel, and our guest today is Nelson Tepfer. And Michael, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about Nelson, and we'll get going.
I will indeed. But first, let's wish everybody a happy new year. This is our first broadcast in 2024, and it is actually the first work week. It's already the 5th. And so to our audience and everybody who's watching at some point, happy new year. Happy New Year to you, Chad, and certainly to you, Nelson. So I am pleased to introduce Nelson Tepfer, whom I've known for a while, who is the co-founder and CEO of ProCFO Partners, which is a company comprised of executive financial managers and growth architects helping business to transform to their next. We're going to ask what that means, but first I want to tell you more about Nelson. So Nelson has spent his entire career helping companies, helping them grow, helping them scale, helping them thrive, helping them overcome their challenges on their paths to success. His capability for transformational contribution is the heart of his abilities as a financial officer. Well, I actually can go on. I have 2 more paragraphs. So let me do that. I think it's worthwhile. He's held leadership roles across organizations, large and small, and he's been involved in over a dozen industries. I'm not going to name them all, but I'm sure you know what they are. And he's been a CFO. He's been an interim CFO. He's been a CEO. And of course, he's the CEO of his current company, ProCFO Partners. So his experience has culminated in the creation of ProCFO Partners, which the raison d'etre. Hopefully, everybody knows what raison d'etre is. Perspective, I guess, is that every company deserves an expert CFO to guide them along their way, and every expert CFO deserves a platform to practice in a way that is meaningful to them. So with that introduction, and it is a good one, and congratulations, Nelson, you've done a great job in your career. Can you tell us how CFO Partners got started, and what do you mean when you say helping businesses transform to their next?
Sure. So Michael and Chad, great to be here. Looking forward to this conversation. So ProCFO Partners, my journey to ProCFO Partners, what's the fun expression? It takes 20 years to be an overnight success. My background in this space is probably more than 15 years at this point. Back when I used to work for a living, which is how I jokingly refer to when I was a full-time CFO. I got started in this space when a friend of mine reached out to me and said a friend of his is having some trouble with his company. Can I have a conversation and see if I can help? And for those of you who are familiar with those kind of requests, no good deed goes unpunished, and that turned into a year-long interim CFO role that I actually juggled with my full-time role. So aside from being a very, very busy year, I had almost this light bulb moment recognizing how much more fun it was to work this way. I learned a new company, new business, new industry, and the things that were day-to-day in my previous role were like magic to a company like this. And I said, this is a lot of fun. I want to do a whole lot more of this. So I went back to my full-time role, converted it into a part-time one, and then started, doing this on my own. I first did this on my own for about 8 years, and I love doing it like that. That's where I went across so many different industries, from companies of all sizes, from startups to close to $500 million in revenue. And again, it was a lot of fun, and I truly enjoyed it. But you run into some challenges when you do this kind of work on your own. They usually center around 3 main areas. Number one, it is difficult to develop and deliver at the same time. For those of you who've been the solopreneur consulting route, can certainly resonate with that, which therefore leads to number 2, usually feast or famine. You're either way too busy or not busy enough. But the third reason was probably the biggest impetus that led me down this path. And that's, when you really boil it down, you only have your own experience and expertise to offer. And as extensive as any individual's experience may be, it is still only your own experience and expertise. So I find that shows up 2 ways. One, occasionally you run into that business owner or entrepreneur who asks you, well, have you worked in this industry before? Now, Michael and Chad, both of you know, many of the issues we're helping these organizations solve have very little to do with the actual industry that they're in, from all of our respective fields of the way we help them. But occasionally it is an objective that, there's a comfort and trust factor in them knowing that somebody familiar with that space. But the flip side to that is you don't have teammates or colleagues to bounce ideas off of. And so I went looking at that point of figuring, okay, if there has to be a way to do this bigger and better, I went looking. What are these other organizations that are doing this bigger and better? And unfortunately, after this kind of search going on, I didn't really like what I found. You either had, some kind of loose association where there wasn't really much value in doing this. It was throughout this search where I met my business partner, and Hale Fardi, my co-founder in this company. And the two of us were having this conversation for about a year. What is the best way to really do this the right way? And best was not about our own egos or what we get to boast about. Best was really about how do we do this best for our team that we build that delivers this? And most importantly, how do we best do this for the companies and clients we serve? What is the best way this looks like to actually help them achieve their goals? Mm-hmm. And so we decided, and that basically the only way to really build this the only way to do this the best way is to actually build it, because either we were faced with that option or we had to stop complaining about it. And neither one of us were going to stop complaining about it. So we launched this company in January of 2020. It was me, my business partner, and 6 CFOs when we launched, and now there are nearly 50 of us. So it's been a very interesting journey to get to this point in time, but that's a whole lot about the founding and organization of where we've come thus far.
So thank you. So what is the CFO Partners mission?
So ProCFO Partners is, again, going back to the statement you read earlier, we believe every business owner deserves an expert CFO to guide their success. They deserve to work with an expert. And where we spent a lot of our time in talking about it is, frankly, and I'll say it here to the two of you and to the wider audience, CFO is just a title. It's not about the fact that we are a CFO or not a CFO. It's what is the impact of working with a CFO? What is the impact of having the framework for financial management and growth that actually supports their success? And that's what we're looking to build when we work with our clients. That's really how we define the impact and value of the CFO. The reason why we had to do this, Michael and Chad, again, from your side of things, we all know CFOs who, some of them are frankly glorified bookkeepers, and some CFOs are basically the CEO and almost everything in between. So instead of trying to determine, well, no, this is what a CFO, or this is a CFO, or this is a CFO, let's flip the conversation to what is the impact of working with an expert CFO? How should it be informing the conversations? How should it be informing the decisions that really lead to the success of the organization?
So Nelson, what's been your perspective on when you go to work with a new client? And we all work from an external perspective with organizations, is gaining that trust and comfort level, especially when you are dealing in the financial realm, because a lot of businesses, they can be very closed or not want to share the information, bordering on paranoid. What's your kind of approach to gaining that comfort level and confidence?
So what we've worked on here is more how we standardize what is the ProCFO client experience to overcome a lot of that. What we've taken is what has worked across the hundreds of companies that we've worked with. And this is taken from my experience and my partner's experience, like saying, okay, how do we actually do this? When we've been able to do it successfully, what were those key factors? And essentially it boils down to developing a set process of how we actually go about in doing this. And 2, and most importantly, which both of you will appreciate from both the work that you do, it's setting that expectation when we start with them. This is what we're going to be doing. This is the process, and this is why. This is the outcome of how we do this and why we do it this way and what we're trying to make sure we achieve for you. This is the outcome that we want. This is how we're going to help you achieve this outcome. This is the process and steps along that way. So it absolutely is that communication that overcomes that. It is also that level of communication and engagement when we start that builds that trust to sustain a long-term relationship that most importantly allows us to have the lasting impact on our clients.
So then what are the key skills, Nelson? What are the key skills for your fractional CFOs, and what are their backgrounds?
So for us, in order to join our team, yes, they have to have been a CFO. They have to have been that senior financial executive. But frankly, that's just what starts the conversation with us. What we've learned and why we've been able to build what we have thus far from a team perspective is recognizing just because they've been a CFO does not mean they will be successful working this way. So it becomes about getting very selective and really identifying those criteria that we think will make someone selective, to be successful working this way. I tell this again when we're going through our interview process and recruiting process. I don't need a bigger bench. I don't need more people on the website. For us, we're looking for people who want to join our team, who are aligned with what we do, who understand that this is not, oh, I've been a CFO before, I can do this work. This is different. This is absolutely working different. And we want the people who, A, understand that, B, are interested and motivated by that. So the criteria, Michael, yes, they have to have been at that level. And being at that level is not about the technical skills. Being at that level is partly about leadership. is partly about how they influence an outcome versus just saying, well, sure, I'm a CFO, I can close the books. Yeah, of course the books need to be closed, but frankly, the value at the CFO level is the insight and guidance you get from doing this as to what decisions need to be made based on this and the impact and value it has. Looking backwards and saying the books are closed, great. Now what do you do with it?
So you started this right as COVID was starting. 2020. So, I usually ask the question of what changed through the pandemic, but since you guys spooled up at the start of it, just from your broader experience in the financial role and the advisory roles, what was some of the key things that you saw change, over the past 3 years that wasn't a factor before that maybe became more important, or things that were no longer, as significant?
So, we have, discussed this internally quite a bit as to, was our rapid growth because of COVID or despite COVID? And to a certain degree, I always answer that question with yes. I mean, there were definitely factors that made it easier for us to do what we do because of COVID. And there are certainly factors that limited our growth because of COVID. And it really shows up two ways. People automatically assume, oh, if you're a fractional CFO, you're remote, or whatever that is. And yes, some of our clients we are, but we also look at our role as if we are stepping into this leadership role within our clients, we need to be where they are. If they are in an office, we cannot be just a box on a screen. So which means even during COVID, if they were in presence, and so again, essential businesses and all that went through this, they were in an office, we had to have some conversation that was in face-to-face and in person as well. And as more and more has come out of COVID, depending on which region or the clients are in, is more and more how much of that is in person. Also, sometimes it's industry dependent. Manufacturing, for instance, I don't think they figured out a way how to manufacture remotely yet, which means that their people are going to be in their office because they need to actually build something. And if they're in their office and we're a member of that leadership team, even though it is just on a fractional basis, we need to be there as well. So what's changed during COVID, early days, it definitely made them more willing to open to the conversation around this. I think it has sped up, frankly, the use of fractional executives across the board as they recognized. I was saying in early days of COVID, high tide hides a lot of rocks, and COVID certainly let the tide out. That was way back at that point, because as some companies realized, yeah, I have, this kind of function and it's not really doing what I need anymore. So how should I be thinking about this differently? And that led to some different conversations of how we're able to support our clients and actually helping them, A, navigate COVID, but B, navigate their business life cycle in general. COVID may have been the impetus that have forced them to recognize that, but their conversation and underlying aspect was really a much bigger issue.
So Nelson, love what you're saying so far, I'm sure. So, you talk about leadership, and I've read that there are 4 pillars for the CFO function: leadership, strategy, controls, and operations. So you've talked about leadership. Can you talk about strategy, controls, and operations for the role of the CFO, and for certainly the fractional CFO?
Sure. So again, going back to where we started, one of the first things we do with every one of our clients is we need to understand where they're trying, what their goals are, what they're trying to do over the next at least 3 to 5 years, not to a specific revenue number, but what are they trying to do with the organization? Because everything we want to help them build, every insight they're going to need, every decision they should be making, we want to make sure is in line to support those goals. So you talk about the strategic element. That's actually one of the biggest differentiators you get from the CFO level versus others in the finance and accounting function areas, is that strategic element of how is this function supposed to be supporting that. It's one of the first things we do with every single client is understand their goals. What are they working towards? Because if we don't understand that, then we can say, oh, sure, you should be doing this. 6 months later, we find out, yeah, but 3 years from now, this is where they want to be. And does this really have anything to do with that? Yes, it's a nice thing to have, but if it's not supporting them, why are we wasting our time, energy, effort, and resources trying to build this? So to answer your, sorry, Chad, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Finish.
Because Michael, that really ties to those other 2 points, the controls level and the operations level as well. Very often when we get involved with companies, depending on the size of where they're up to, is what level of controls do they have? There is that element of what got you here won't get you there. It's them recognizing that they've been very successful or have struggled to get to where they are today. But it's really about what is it going to take to get them beyond this. So controls, for instance, we definitely have walked in scenarios where we understand if this is what they're trying to do, This is the operation that's needed to get there. You're going to need this number of people. You're going to need this level of controls and double checks and processes in place to ensure this is running smoothly and you don't run into these other issues. Can you exist without doing some of those things? You can exist. Is that going to really get you towards achieving your goals? Probably not. And it's that level of clarity that becomes so essential in starting, is to determine what are the controls that need to be built. Operationally, what are the pieces that need to be built that's going to support that? I remember speaking to one business owner, for instance, where he says, oh, their goal is to double within 3 years. This was a manufacturing company, this one in particular. And I said, that sounds great. You have the sales pipeline to do it. Sure, wonderful. And I walked out with him onto his factory floor and it's like, you have the capacity to produce double of what you're doing today? And you see him like, well, not really. I said, okay, well, we probably need to figure out how to operate, what it takes to actually deliver this. Just because you can bring in the revenue or because you have the sales pipeline or think you have the sales pipeline to do so, doesn't mean you can actually deliver the product or service as a result. The same thing is true on the professional service side. You want to double? Great. That means you're going to have to, increase your staff by 30%. Are you capable of handling a staff of more than 30% bigger than where you are today? It's not just a number. That's how we take what they're working towards, make it both operational, make it tactical to say, this is what we actually need to do that's going to help you achieve that, how we're going to work towards that on an ongoing basis.
So building off of that, Nelson, what would you say? So when I mean, always to go and work with organizations, they kind of tend to fall into two pipelines, ones that are aspirational, they have the goals, what they want to do in the future, and then the fires. What would you say is the breakdown for you guys as far as, it's firefighting versus, helping them strengthen for the future?
Well, what we've recognized is even the firefighting, if we don't contextualize it to the bigger picture, yeah, we can put out one fire. The next one's waiting right next to it. It will very easily catch it. We put this one out. Yeah, but did you realize this one caught and then this one caught and then this one caught as well? So we absolutely need to put on our firefighting hat. We need to fix some of the pieces that are going on very often right when we walk in the door. But while we're doing that, we have to contextualize it with the bigger picture. Because whatever solution we put in place, if we don't understand that bigger picture, A, is that taking them off of where they want to go? And B, is this even really where they should be focusing their time, energy, and efforts? Maybe we should let this part burn and actually move on to the next part that's actually going to help them achieve what they want to. So you actually have to understand, even with the firefighting scenarios, we have to understand what the bigger picture is. So yes, we dive in, we fix this, we cover this issue, we put out this, but at the same time, we are also laying that groundwork for, okay, yes, but you're facing this issue because of here. Can we put out the fire and fix the symptom? Sure. If we're not actually identifying what the underlying disease is, it's not going to help. We'll just come back.
Nelson, is there a particular industry that your CFO partners specialize in? And is there a particular size company?
So industry-wise, we're I think we're at last count, we're currently operating in 28 or 29 different industries. And I joke with many people that number seems to keep growing because apparently they keep making up new industries. Now, it's not about us being industry agnostic. It is very often we actually have that level of experience and expertise at the CFO level from our team. With a team of now nearly 50 CFOs, they've actually been in all of these industries before. So we really are able to do this. In addition, because of the way we operate as a team, while every one of our clients will work directly with one CFO, as well as one of our managing directors who's responsible for client success, because we meet as a team, we get to leverage the entire thought collective that's behind that one CFO. So even if one CFO is working with this one particular client, they get to ask the rest of the team, hey, I'm facing this kind of issue or seeing this kind of thing. Has anyone seen or done this before? So that really helps us, again, most importantly, that helps us have that lasting impact we're looking to for our clients. But by way of size, I think we have clients as small as funded startups pre-revenue and as large as a few $100 million in revenue, but most of them are a few million to about 80, 90 million is where most of them are. Not that we can't do smaller, not that we can't do larger, but I won't take smaller or larger or even the ones in that field if I don't think we can actually be of value. So for us, it's not about, can we sell another client? Can we close another engagement? It's, do we think we can really be of value here? If yes, let's figure out what is the right scenario to help us do so. If not, we're not going to try and start. I have had clients who wanted to work with us where at the end of the conversation, I explained to them, that's great and thank you for your trust, but we're not the right fit for you. Here's another resource I think that might be a better fit that's going to help you do what you want to right now, and continue to ask me questions as you continue to do this. Maybe we can help in the future.
Right. So thinking about how you got to where you are now, and maybe people that have inspired you or people that you would want to like pick their brain, living or dead. You could have dinner. Who would you pick?
Oh boy, that's always a fun question for me. I mean, one of the ones I've always wanted to speak to, is someone like a Jeff Bezos, not because of what he built or didn't. Again, it's obviously a fascinating story there, but for me, those early days, it's more I'm curious about that level of clarity to build something no one believed was possible, no one could exist, no one thought existed. Frankly, it didn't exist at the time. It's that level of understanding that yes, even though this doesn't exist, I'm still going to do it. Because the flip side to that, as we very often see, so many companies that fail is they're trying to build a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. It was that level of vision that he had to say, yes, I'm building a solution to something that might not exist yet, but will exist. And I need to make sure this is built over here. So that's always somebody, somebody like that who has done that. He's obviously one who comes to mind for that, but somebody who's thought of that and built an organization, built a product, built a solution around something like that doesn't exist yet is fascinating to me.
So speaking of that, and just question, how have you been able to scale ProCFO Partners? What's the secret sauce that there are lots of fractional CFOs out there, but you seem to have a team, which you talk about, so what is your secret sauce and how have you been able to scale ProCFO Partners?
So there's really a few elements to it. As much as you say secret sauce, the part that I always disillusion people of, there is no magic to it. There is no secret to it. You have to break down the pieces of what needs to be done to build a scalable organization and go do the work to build it. So there's a few elements to that. Number one.
Well, just a moment though. I'm going to challenge you on the secret side because, the fact is it was secret before you uncovered the secret.
Well, I'll tell you what, Mike, I'll tell you what. How about I go through what some of these pieces are and you tell me if they're really secret afterwards.
It's the same thing about Bezos. Think about that.
No, it is. It's true. It is true. So it's recognizing a few different things. To build a scalable organization requires a few different elements. A, requires, to your point, the team. So it became what is the vision we are building that the rest of the team actually wants to be a part of? B, it means how do we make them successful? If our goal is to help as many companies as we can, which it is a lot of what we do, again, it's about how every company deserves this expert CFO because of how much of a struggle this whole area is for so many companies, is making sure we're able to articulate our vision and get the people who are aligned with that vision. So it is building the team. To your point about scalability, it's about how do we translate this down to the managing director levels and the other leadership members we're building a team around and how they do this. This can no longer be just me as a co-founder, CEO, or my business partner as the co-founder and chief visionary officer we have in the organization. It can't be just the two of us. It becomes how do we continue for this to trickle down throughout the organization. It is about building a sustainable marketing engine, which we continue to invest in what it takes to deliver that, which is on messaging, how we can constantly tweak and articulate that. Michael, you and I have had a number of conversations over some of the pieces we've put out over the years around this. It becomes how do we continue to articulate our value proposition in a way that doesn't sound like everybody else. I say this almost semi-jokingly, but I found it unfortunate to be really true. We're a little different in our space, even though I don't think we should be. Both from the impact and value we provide, the level of experience and expertise we get, and the outcome of what we're driving towards when we support our clients.
So do you want to continue growing the company?
We do. And then the driver for it remains our same mission. This whole finance and accounting area is such a blind spot, is such a sore point for so many business owners, and it really shouldn't be. It is such a crucial part of them scaling their organization and achieving their goals. For us, we measure our success not by the revenue we generate, not by the number of clients we have. We measure our success by the lasting impact we have on our clients. So the more clients we get to help, the bigger and more we're going to need to grow to continue to support more of them.
So with the marketing effort, how would you break down your acquisition of clients? Is word of mouth? Is there a certain channel that you found to be really successful for you? Like, what have you found to be successful for ProCFO?
So yes, the short answer. We have recognized, yes, we get referred in a lot to our clients, but also is what does it take to generate referrals? Why should someone refer us? Why should someone refer us as a solution, and why should someone refer us versus somebody else who says they do what we do as well? It's understanding both pieces to make sure the people who can refer us understand those differences. So it is about a process for how we develop a referral relationship. I don't mean a technical paid relationship. We don't accept referral fees for anything we bring into our clients or anything like that. It becomes really about how do we make sure we can help them help their clients by bringing us in? How do we make sure they understand this? So yes, how we develop referral relationships is more systemized rather than just, oh, sure, I know somebody, he can refer me. I'm sure I'm going to wait by the phone and wait till he calls me up and refers me to his next client. It's making sure there is that communication as well. It is building out an actual marketing engine so that, we build the actual brand behind this as well. So it's not just this is Nelson, this is a ProCFO brand as well. So that becomes blogs, videos, podcasts, social media, email campaigns, newsletters that we put out on a regular basis. It's not just did you happen to find us or see us, or have you met somebody who met me? Yes, I've been busy with networking. Obviously, Michael and I have crossed paths in our networking spaces before. So I do tend to know a lot of people, but we're not limited by just the people I have gotten to with my own 2 feet. So it is building out the lead generation side as well, how we communicate with our market, how we make sure it is that help first mentality. So yes, we've done a lot from referrals, both from our current clients and from our referral sources. It is recognizing who are the right referral sources that we want to develop and spend the time, energy, effort, and resources to develop those relationships with. It's not, I've always found that it's never a specific title, like, oh, you have this title, you must be a great referral source for me. I've always found it's their relationship with their clients. So how do we listen for that in our first conversations with them to say, is this the right person we want to develop this with?
So I gather from your responses, yes, you definitely want to grow. And yes, I gather that you will do that by all the marketing efforts that you've talked about, and certainly increase the brand. How do you work with other consultants that are currently working with your organizations, or bringing in other consultants? How do you work with them? How does that happen?
So we get brought in by them and we bring them in. So there's absolutely both sides to the conversation. We get brought in by them because very often, if they're involved with their clients, they're going to see the problems that we can help solve. Very rarely does someone walk up to you and say, hey, do you know a good part-time CFO? Believe me, it would make my job much easier if they did. But they don't actually do that. Instead, they either complain about their business or they keep solving the same problems without realizing they shouldn't be solving that problem. And that's not the actual issue they should be solving for on this side. And it's someone who's already seen this and saying, oh, you're facing this challenge, you're complaining about this thing. You should talk to Nelson and his team. ProCFO can probably help with this. So that goes back to the previous conversation of the people who refer us in are the people who have that level of involvement or engagement with their clients, so we can actually help them help their clients. So we're very big supporters of the business of expertise. We know the things that we know. We very happily bring in anything and everything that helps our clients. To that extent, like I said, we do not accept any referral fees. If we think something can help our clients, we want it there. If they're facing this problem, anything that helps them helps us. So we will very happily bring in every different kind of resource imaginable that is actually going to support our clients. And because of the team of 50 CFOs now, the pool of resources that are vetted that we've used successfully with our clients is pretty extensive. One of our clients need this kind of thing. Does anyone know something on that? We have those internal communications going on all the time. It's like, okay, what type of company? What are they doing? In a conversation literally this morning, one of our team members said, oh, this organization we're supporting, which happens to be a nonprofit, needs a new audit firm. 2 other people on the call who have extensive experience in nonprofit. Sure, I can send you the list of these are the ones I've worked with. This is what, based on size, I think these 2 will be the best fit. You should speak to both of them.
So, one of the things you've mentioned a couple of times, Nelson, is the whole fit issue. What advice would you give to maybe a startup or someone that's leading a smaller organization? Because saying no is always kind of a scary thing, and knowing when to walk. What would you advise them, or just tell them to consider? When something like a flag or that light might be flashing in the corner of your eye, and that might not be the right way to go.
I share this story often because it really describes that. First of all, there's 2 pieces to this. So I'll answer it both funny and then tell the story side of it. The funny side is you have to understand that saying no to this allows you to say yes to more things. So first of all, you need to understand that mindset. It allows you to do more for the things you actually should be doing if you say no to this one. But the story side of it, to your point, the warning lights that are flashing and we say yes anyway, what's truly important to recognize is those warning lights or instinct or gut, whatever you want to call that That's very real, and don't ignore it. There are so many business owners we've supported where it's like, oh yeah, my gut was telling me to do this and I did this anyway, and this is what happened. And this was a business owner I remember speaking to where he told me about this like 3-4 times, and sure enough, 2 weeks later, we're facing a decision, and he says, my gut is telling me this one, but but the rest of my team says, so I think we're going to do this anyway. And I said, what do you do? You just told me 3 stories of when that exact same thing happened, and you knew that wasn't the right thing in your gut, because we all know gut is not gut per se. It is actually based on that that knowledge, experience, and expertise that you've developed, which every business owner has, what that looks like. You understand why you shouldn't be doing this. You're choosing to ignore that. What do you think is going to happen? So it's almost not forcing them, but advising them to recognize this is giving you this warning sign for these reasons. You want to take on that risk and do it anyway, go ahead, but understand what you're taking on if you're choosing to ignore what is internally advising you not to.
Well said. Well, we've come to about half hour of asking a number of questions, and you've been terrific in answering all of them. So what haven't we asked you that you'd like to tell the audience?
Oh boy. The open-ended side of the question. Well, for starters, any way we can be reached is always helpful. There's a lot of educational pieces up on our website. So even just for people to learn more about what this role and function should be doing for you, we put out a lot of the educational pieces because it is in line with our mission. It is not always about, oh, you must hire us or you're going to fail. It is about aligned with what we're doing. So there's a lot of educational pieces up on our website. I think both of you referenced, we have blogs and videos and podcasts around a whole bunch of different topics, both industry-wise and specific challenges that many companies face. So I encourage everyone, if they're interested in learning more about this, please feel free to check out the website. There's obviously ways you can reach us should you want to as well.
And we'll be posting that on right in chat.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have a question that if we don't ask, we'll probably be heading into podcast purgatory. What is the impact that you see of AI on the CFO space?
Great question.
So fascinating question. And interestingly enough, we do have a podcast and video on that as well, specifically on that topic. If we get asked that a lot, and it is understanding what it can do. Well, first of all, it's what it actually is and what it actually can do for you. There's a lot that gets lumped into it, which we find is very encouraging. It's not a bad thing that more gets lumped into it, because it forces business owners to think bigger or differently around a bunch of different areas of their company. So the reason why I say what it is and what it isn't, because, RPA, for instance, robotic process automation, like things like that have been around for longer periods of time that people are lumping into what is AI. Those two are different. But if the conversation around AI has you thinking about RPA, I consider that a win. Go for it, because that has you thinking about what automation can look like and scalability can look like within organizations, which people have not been thinking about before. So we're a big fan of just having the conversation and thinking of what areas in your company this can actually impact. We've seen one where putting a process in place, not eliminated, but allowed them to free up 3 people's time to focus on other areas of the company. There's a lot of that. Now, was that technically AI versus RPA? You can leave that to the technologists to really debate the difference between the two around that. There's actually more RPA than AI. But to your point, AI, it's understanding the tool, what it actually can do. AI by itself is a tool. It's, to a certain degree, it is a very powerful tool, absolutely. But it is a tool. So we always have to be careful and run into that adage of, to a man with a hammer, every problem's a nail. It's not like AI is a cure for everything. There is so much that it actually can do. And we encourage business owners to explore what it actually can do. For our role, is there a lot of day-to-day accounting, task-oriented things that we believe will be impacted by AI? Absolutely. But the level of insight that's required, that level of leadership that's still required, that we don't see AI taking on, at least not yet. Who knows, obviously, what will come in the future. That aspect of it, we don't see that taking on just yet. But we are seeing AI begin to enter the accounting industry. Now, as CFOs, we're not accountants, but we rely on the work from the accounting side of things. And therefore, we're seeing more of those investments. We're seeing more the impact of those kind of things begin to take place over there. And how we can build those tools. Does it make it easier for us to do a monthly close? Does it make it easier for us to update a model we're using? Does it make it easier for us to handle some of these areas that we rely on to give that level of insight and leadership moving forward? Absolutely. And I think that will continue to increase.
Excellent. Great. Well, Nelson, it's been great talking to you. I'm glad that we've met this morning, and I know I've learned more on the CFO space. I'm more of a communication operations guy. So I'm like the one like, oh, what about this? I'm like, Ask him. No, thank you very much for your time, Michael. Anything in closing?
Well, as you said, Nelson, you and I have met on a number of occasions. We've networked together. I continue to look forward to that. As you well know, what I do in terms of, and happy to bring in any of your CFO partners to accounts that need that. And I totally look forward to that. So I want to thank you again. This has been terrific. Chad, any last words about how people can get in touch with us?
See what shows on YouTube. You can search for the Meaningful Communication Show on there and subscribe there. In addition to, we'll be posting it on LinkedIn and some other social media channels. We will also have links to Nelson's company, so you can explore those resources that he mentioned and reach out to them if you're interested in learning more about what they can do for you. And let's make 2024 a great year together and do some business.
Thank you. Thank you both for having me on. A great conversation.
I appreciate it. Bye-bye, everybody.
Have a good day.